Well, the NBA All-Star break is over, and now we're officially in the second half of the season. We're almost to the NBA playoffs, and things, they're going to get shaky, and they're going to get wild. We're going to go over how the NBA is so far and what teams are looking good and seeing what they need in order to ramp up their way into the playoffs. Also, NFL free agency. Hey, it's right around the corner, guys. We're going to get into that. Some signings that I think could happen and some big news that I think that's going into this free agency. And then that's what we will talk about and get into today on Cooper Sports Podcast. And you're now listening to Cooper Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Cooper Burks, bringing you the best content, as always, from the NBA and the NFL right here on Spotify and YouTube. That is right. What's up, guys? I'm sorry. I know it's been a long time. No excuses. Absolutely no excuses. It's been almost a month since my last recorded podcast episode, but there's just no excuse for it. I'm sorry, but there's just no excuse. That's all I gotta say is I'm sorry. But anyway, so yeah, I'm glad to be back in the mix here. I had that short little break, although I didn't really know what to talk about. Honestly, there wasn't much to talk about. But now that things are starting to heat and ramp up, there's a lot of things that I want to get into. So I'm glad to be back up here, up and running. Sorry, I'm eating a Blizzard right now, so I might be in and out with burping a little bit, so I don't know. But yeah, so I'm going to get back into the mix. I'm going to keep it ramped up. The NBA playoffs are almost around. The NFL free agency is right around the corner as well, so big things to look forward to coming up this I can't even speak, this upcoming season. So let's get right into it. So as I mentioned during my little intro there, I said Spotify and YouTube. So I've decided to take a course of action and do some redoing around how I'm doing this podcast. So if y'all remember when I first started out this podcast last summer, I said I was going to do it on Spotify and YouTube because I don't want y'all to just listen to it on Spotify and just listen to the audio. I want you to have a chance if you on YouTube to watch me, but you don't have to watch this beautiful face of mine. You can still listen to it on YouTube and keep it in the background as an audio, but I want people who have a chance on YouTube to see it who don't have Spotify or don't want access to it or don't have access to it. And so that's what I did the first time I started out. I would upload to both platforms. And then it just got weird for me. Like once I came back into podcasting, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep it on Spotify, keep it audio only. Everybody else, if you don't have, I was basically going to keep it on Spotify and not upload anywhere else. But then I had to talk, I was talking to Jay. If y'all know Jay, one of my guests that's been here on numerous times, I had to talk with him a little bit. I was like, dude, I think it's time that I go back to that I do video and audio, because that's a way to expand it, and that's a way for y'all to see different points of views if you don't want to listen to it on just one platform. So guess what? From now on until then, you're going to see this beautiful face of mine right here. I even got a new webcam. I'm not using I looked at the laptop quality on this camera and boy, it was ugly. But I got this Logi, throw away the box, but it's one of those Logi webcams, and it's pretty high power, 180 or 1080, I think it is, HP or whatever it's called. And then I also got me some Skull Candy headphones. The earbuds weren't going to do it. And then I still have this mic that I still use for podcast I have been since day one, but I'm starting to turn things around. I'm going to make things better for y'all, I promise. So without further ado, that's my little say on everything. I'm glad to be back in the mix. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so post NBA All-Star break. The NBA All-Star break ended last week, so I understand I'm behind on this, but now it's time to get fully loaded into this NBA season, because we're literally a month out from the playoffs. You still got, it's the last week of February. So on Friday, it's going to be March 1st. And then we'll have that whole month and then into mid-April. And then we're starting to play in tournament in the playoffs, guys. So let's look at this. So, I mean, geez. I mean, it's been a pretty shocking season for me so far. I got the standings. Excuse me. I've got the standings pulled up right here for the NBA for both conferences. Boston is at number one. Of course, they always have been. They will be for a while. For the years to come, they're always the first seed anyway, so it's not shocking there. Cleveland, though, they've held their ground. They're in the second seed, tied with the Bucks there with wins. The Bucks are number 3. The Knicks are 4. Miami's 5. Philadelphia's holding their own game too, especially at that spot. Indiana. Guys, Indiana has looked spectacular this year. I think that they're going to make a good name for themselves as a dark horse team for the playoffs, you like to call it, a dark horse, as we like to call those certain teams. Orlando, too. They've held their ground. They're pretty young. Frank Wagner, my personal favorite, Paulo Banchero from Duke University. I'm a big Duke guy, and they just got the win tonight too against Louisville. I was watching it, but anyway, my boy Paulo, Frank Wagner, Jalen Suggs. Trying to remember who's on the Magic, but Cole Anthony. Chicago, they're always in the play-in spot. Atlanta, 10th spot is Atlanta. And then I'm not going to talk about the other teams that are out of the position because, well, actually, Brooklyn, Toronto could sneak in, maybe. Okay, over at the Western Conference, you have Minnesota still hanging on to that number 1 spot. OKC is right behind them at 41-17. So I think all Minnesota has to do is lose a couple more games, maybe, and OKC can control this first seed if they can get a couple more wins and hope Minnesota loses. But there's still a whole another month left, so anything is possible at this point. Denver, their defending champs, are at the 3rd seed right now at 39-19. The Clippers, who have looked pretty darn good and flipped the script for themselves, are 37-19. Phoenix is 10 wins over 500, 34-24. New Orleans is sitting out that 6th seed, 35-25. Sacramento is at the 7th. These are your playoff teams. The Kings, Dallas, Golden State, and LA. All right, so there you go. And then you have your bottom teams that are out of contention who have no purpose. But again, there's still a whole another month to go in this playoffs, or in this regular season. So anything can happen at this point. So yeah, it's gonna be good contention. I'm like what I'm seeing here. One thing I will point out from the East side is the Indiana Pacers. Guys, the Indiana Pacers have looked spectacular. I keep using the same word for every team, so I'm just going to say they've looked pretty darn good. They've took a lot of people by surprise so far. Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner. Domantas Sabonis is on Sacramento team. I forgot about that. Buddy Hield got traded to the Sixers, I want to say. Yeah. Obi Toppin. Those guys. I mean, this crew has looked very good. I don't know their stats off the top of my head, but I know for sure it's pretty darn good. The Pacers are finding success, guys. The last time... I can't remember the last time I remember seen the Pacers have this much success and going into a playoff run, like a potential playoff run like this. Probably Reggie Miller days, you could say, and when Paul George was there, of course. We all know their outings against LeBron and the Cavs every year because they always get bumped. So now that they're exceeding right and they have their pieces, they're moving up each level. And so now that they're able to find somewhat of success because, it's been years since they've been to this type of position where they're at right now. And so, by the way, shout out to Dairy Queen. Dude, absolute dogs with their M&M Blizzards. Every time I just want a Blizzard, just go at night, go get one, boom. Absolute dogs. Okay, so anyway, it's clicking so far for them. Now, of course, there's still a month left in the season, so anything could happen. They could fall off so easily, but it's looking pretty good for them. I like what I'm seeing. They're scoring a lot more. Their defensive force is definitely there. With the addition now with Siakam, he's able to put up some good defense. I really like seeing Siakam play. I think it was the right move for him to get out of Toronto, because that whole team was was on the verge of blowing it up anyway, and they have been over the years. So since their last chip, so it was a good move there. That's about it, really. Again, they're standing right now in the standings are in the seventh, so they're in that first spot for the play-in. Miami and Philadelphia and possibly even New York could easily drop, and so Indiana can make their way up between the fourth and sixth seed. So as I'm reading it right here, so it's good times right now in the league. The Pacers are in good hands. The Orlando Magic, they keep winning. Paulo Banchero and his crew, they're putting up some good offense. I really like what I'm seeing from them. They're able to put the ball in the basket, and they're making a good defensive force, and I like what I'm seeing from them. Chicago, Atlanta, there's nothing much to say about them. They're just saying they have been always the same. I feel bad for LaVine. I think he needs to get out there and go to a winning team so that way he can find success in his career before it's too late. But he's still very young, so LaVine's still got still got a lot of years left ahead of him in the league. Boston, not surprising where they're at. The Cleveland Cavaliers are behind them with 7 games behind, so Boston has to drop 7 games, which I find that very unlikely. Their last 10 is 9-1, so they're on a 9-game winning streak as of right now. So I don't see anything stopping Boston right now except for injuries. And they play even the toughest teams in the league, and they still win. So they're proving themselves as the most dominant team right now in the NBA. But again, that can always change. Milwaukee. Guys, as y'all know, Jeremiah's a Bucks fan, and let's just say that it hasn't been too kind to him. Doc Rivers, just get the hell out of Milwaukee. just get the hell out of Milwaukee, please. I mean, dude, we're already right around the playoffs. You're already in playoff form. You're practicing for that way. When you do prepare to get to the playoffs, you have a series lead, and then you realize, okay, my time to shine. Everybody blow that lead. Boom. All right, I'm out. See y'all. Bye-bye. I don't really mean Doc Rivers get the heck out of... Well, I mean it in a funny, sarcastic, kind of serious way But, I mean, he's going to stick with them with the playoffs either way. But, dude, I mean, they could dump him even after this year if it doesn't work out. Because he came in last minute. I don't think Andrew Griffith was the problem. Like, yeah, he might have had some issues with Giannis and a couple other issues with some guys. Giannis was the only one that I knew about. But, I mean, dude, he wasn't the issue. And then you bring in Doc Rivers, of course, and we all know his history. I mean, the man was literally just sitting in a booth with Mike Breen and Doris Burke, and now he's coaching. Me and Jay have already talked about this Doc Rivers issue, but now it's getting worse to the point now where they've had as much losses as the Pistons have, and it's getting pretty ugly. They're still over 500, of course, and they're winning, but they're 38-21. But, I mean, their last 10, they're 5 for 5, and they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. So take off 3 of those games. Yeah. So take off those 3 games, and they are 2-5 in their last 10. But now that they're on the 3-game win streak, they're 5-5. Dame, I feel like sums up with him. I read this quote that he said a while back, or I think it was now, saying how life is just like, he doesn't know now. Like, it's something about like him, like not having, like, he doesn't do much. Like, he just practices, goes home, plays games, does whatever he needs, gets stuff done, and then goes to bed and then replays it. I don't know if that's what it's affect. I've heard something about a divorce with his wife, maybe. I don't know if that was true or not, but I saw someone comment about that on a post. But Anyway, I just don't know what's up with this Bucks team as far as them having leads and blowing it, and just I mean they're on a 3-game win streak, so they're figuring out something. They just got to keep it that way and not fall in the trap game. And Doc Rivers can't go into his playoff mode where he's up in a series lead and blowing it, because then that just looks bad on you, because you were asked to come in and fulfill a role for somebody else that they got rid of, and then now you're here and now you're not even doing what we asked you to do, and that's find success. But the Bucks will be successful. Giannis is still ramming it down the court like he always has. Damian Lillard has definitely, I'm not going to bash Dame, but I think he's definitely had a well-known presence in Milwaukee so far with shooting the ball and getting it out real well. Chris Middleton with his banged-up injury, I say you find a package for him next season, maybe. But I'm not going to make up too much of this stuff, because we're still in the playoff. We're still not even in the playoffs, so anything can happen. But still. The Knicks, Jalen Brunson, guys, he's really making it for himself. They're well over 500, 11 games over. And Jalen Brunson is just leading the charge for this team, along with this young Knicks team that doesn't have their other star player, Julius Randle, of course, who's been out with an injury for a while. I don't know if he's back. I've been watching their games, but I don't know if he's back. I think he's actually out still, because it said in his injury report that he was going to be out for a while. But yeah, they're putting up points. They're playing some okay defense. Their offensive points per game is 109.9, so they got something to work for. They play better at home than they do away. But anywho, I like what I'm seeing from the Knicks, and they're a 4 seed right now, so they can easily be successful in that category. And then Philly's trying to hold their ground with Joel Embiid and this new crew. They're doing all right. Miami's dealing with that Jimmy Butler issue with his injury, or with his absence of leave. And guys, the Kings lost to the Heat, and the Heat didn't even have all their starters in. Like, how does that happen? Over on the West, like me and Jay talked about that last time with the podcast episode with NBA, there wasn't much to talk about, but there is now. I'm just trying to figure out the clues. To Minnesota is still making a good name for themselves. OKC, guys, OKC's a good threat now. Like, they are a potential finals team, let alone at least a Western Conference. Like, I feel like they can be untouched, but they can also be untouched. I don't know how I just quoted that. I might have misworded that as far as like making it make sense. But anyway, they're looking pretty good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's putting up another MVP caliber season. He has the chance to get an MVP this year, along with the likes of Giannis and Luka and Jokic and Embiid maybe. But Shai is putting up good points. His points per games is pretty good. Chet Holmgren, Lewis Dort, all those guys, Chet's figuring it out for himself. He's coming back off that injury, of course, as we know from last season. So it's his rookie year. So they're making a good name for themselves over here for the OKC Thunder. The Clippers have definitely figured out, since that Harden trade happened, they were absolutely miscombobulated. They did not know what the heck they were doing. Actually, I got it going on right now in the background, the Lakers and Clippers game, because I gotta watch basketball. I love it. NBA's or the NFL's over now, so shucks. But anyway, yeah, it's the Lakers and Clippers right now, battle of the West. So it's always good to watch those two teams go at it against each other. But the Clips and James Harden, with the James Harden edition, they're doing okay. They're doing good. They have a really good home record right now with 20-7. I just had a brain fart. Russell Westbrook has contributed a lot. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are hitting their stride. So this Clipper team is an offensive, defensive caliber squad. I think I can see it more in the scoring wise than I do defense, even though they have caliber defensive players. They know how to put up points on the offense. I mean, you got James Harden, who can score Kawhi who can score and play the defensive side a lot good. You also have Paul George who can shoot the ball as a well-known presence in shooting, and Russell Westbrook who's, I'm not going to say he sucks at shooting, but he's contributing to putting the ball in the hoop in many different ways. But I like what I'm seeing from them. I think they can make a good run here heading into this postseason, be a good team. Phoenix, they just got to get Bradley Beal back, and I think they'll be okay. They still don't have a okay bench, backup bench, which is what's making it. I mean, they're over 500, so you know they're doing good, but it's the issue of when they got Kevin Durant, they didn't have that secondary players or bench players to cover the load, and then they start playing, and then they're losing games because they don't have bench players to have their starters they don't have players to fill in for their starters when they're resting up. There we go. So, but they're over 500, so they're holding their ground here. New Orleans, Zion got tired of us calling him fat, and I mean, I just rocked my table on accident. For Zion and the Pelicans are putting up good numbers. Zion, the trio, McCollum and Ingram and Zion, they're putting up points. They're putting up offense. The Pelicans, of course, they're always in that play-in area, playoff type, because, they can be a good team, but when Zion is out with injuries, it gets a little harder for someone to carry the load. But with all them back together now, making it happen, they're over 500 and they're making it look like they can be a good contender. Sacramento, they're trying to pick up right where they left off, which was last year. Obviously, they would have probably looked like a higher seeding, but they're doing okay. They're 5-5 right now in their last 10, so they've been back and forth with the win and loss. My Dallas Mavericks, they had a great addition to their trade deadline with PJ Washington and Daniel. See, I don't even know. I forgot his name, and it's off the top of my head. What a Mavs fan I am. Daniel Gafford, that's his name. Daniel Gafford, the addition of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. I honestly thought we won the trade deadline there. That was the only big thing that I thought that came out of that trade deadline. Guys, that's why I didn't even mention it. That's why I didn't want to talk about the trade deadline, because there was nothing big coming out of this. Like, the PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford trade was probably the best one out of everything. But anyway, that was a great addition for Dallas. They needed a trade like that. Seth Curry, he always gets bounced around, so I was a little sad that he left, but he always gets bounced around. And he finds his way back to us somehow. Grant Williams, he wasn't it. We gave him all that money, and we knew that probably coming into that was going to be a salary cap issue, and I'm glad we were able to get it done. But he wasn't contributing to anything. He barely was out there doing much, which we thought he was going to do something good with us, and he just never did. He could never find his stride with us, so we shipped him off to Charlotte for that PJ Washington trade. But I like the addition. They're able to rebound because, guys, as we know, the Mavs have a real issue with perimeter defense and rebounding. That's what their issue is. They don't have a true big that can help them get to where they need to get, and that's the playoffs. And we know why. Last season was a tank season. After that Kyrie trade, they kind of blew it up on defense, and they didn't focus on their main category, which was the play. They did, but they weren't winning. And that was the issue. They didn't have the true big either. Now that we have two bigs who are able to be liable and contribute, and they have contributed since their arrival in Dallas. Gafford and Washington both. Gafford especially went off in that game against the Thunder, his first game as a Maverick. And so, they went on a 7-game win streak. It was good. They had a good run there for the 7 games, and then when they came back and they lost to the Pacers, and then the game last night against the Cavaliers, I don't want to talk about it. Once in a lifetime shot, Max Strus. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, By the way, that was the second longest shot recorded ever in NBA history. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. I don't even want to watch it again because I'm that mad about it. Anyway, but yeah, they were on that. They're riding a 7-game win streak before they lost to Indiana, and then they lost to Cleveland. So that's 2 back-to-back losses. But they were able to pick it back up tonight and beat the Raptors. So they still got some stuff to fix on defense because we keep falling into these low games, close games. Like last night against Cleveland, they blew a lead. They were up by like 20-ish points almost, and then I think they're the most teams that have blown 20-point leads and come out with a loss at the end, I believe. Is what one of my friends was telling me that today. But anyway, it's awful. We still got to figure out the defense. Jason Kidd has to figure out something for this Dallas Mavericks team, and he's got to work with the plan and figure out something before he goes in this playoffs. Because I don't want him to run with the same bullcrap maneuver that he's been doing, and not give people the right minutes, give the people the right ball. Oh, and THJ, I mean, we can't keep chucking up these random threes. Like, I know you are a spectacular three-point shooter. You can chuck it up from anywhere and make the deepest three and make it clutch. But my guy, the Pacers game, you got to slow down. You're a great player. We just can't keep chunking up threes as a game plan. We can't say, okay, Luka, instead you're going to pass it out to THJ. THJ for 3? Oh, that's a 3 in a row. Never mind, he misses. So we got to work with the game plan. We can't just rely on Luka. Although it's working out that he's been able to just work his way around people, just go, hey, with the ball and just get an and one easily. But there's a reason why we have Kyrie. There's a reason why we have Derek Light. There's a reason why we have Washington, Gafford. They're able to contribute on both sides of the ball here. And with that saying, I think the Mavericks can be definitely a dark horse team. I'm not saying it from a biased point. I'm trying to be like, statistically, like, not non-biased. I think they can be a dark horse team because they're so young, and they have a veteran player who's had experience in the playoffs, so he knows how to play. And we have a young Luka Doncic who's already about to possibly enter the playoffs his 5th time already, and he's still developing and trying to figure it out. So he can possibly win a chip with us, because I want that to happen. If Luka ever leaves the Mavs, I want him to leave with a chip and not go somewhere else and go win a chip, and we couldn't do it for him, especially with the 5-year contract he signed. So that's just me from a non-biased standpoint. Go ahead and make your opinions about it, but that's just a non-biased standpoint for me. But Golden State and LA, they're doing good. Golden State's finally hitting their stride back. They've dropped a lot of games. They had earlier in part of the season before the All-Star break, they were losing easy games that they should have lost. But they finally figured out now. Draymond's all clean. He's good. Clay's still on the struggling part. He has his moments now. Curry is still lights out, beautiful. Nothing's ever going to slow the man down. As Stephen A. refers to him as the greatest shooter that God ever created. So the Warriors they're 8-2 in their last 10. So they're finding something. Don't ever count out Golden State. It's kind of like with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year. Never count Patrick Mahomes out. Never count Steph Curry out, because he'll somehow find a way to creep in and win a chip. Even when you think his team's not expected to go all the way. And then the Lakers, they look better after the deadline. There was issues with Darvin Ham as the head coach, and they weren't finding a good stride with the true point guard position. But then after that, D'Angelo Russell turned on after the trade deadline, and he realized, okay, I got to start stepping up and being a better player. And that's what he's done. He's contributed a lot better, and I like what I'm seeing from him. Sorry, I'm still eating this Blizzard. It's so delicious. But anyway, that's what he's been able to contribute. Sorry for you YouTube viewers. I got to plug in this laptop real quick. But anyway, yeah, this is weird now because you're going to see everything that I do on camera. So, yeah, but anyway, so yeah, that's my standpoint on the NBA so far. I like what I'm seeing from all these teams, and that's my takes on it. So I like what I'm seeing. But anyway, enough NBA talk. We'll come back to that, of course. Now it's time to get into the NFL. The NFL. It's that time of the year, guys. It's almost March, and you know what that means? Free agency and tag deadlines, trades, signings, whatever. All that's going to be coming down. All right. So as we know, coming up here shortly in like another week or so is going to be the franchise tag deadline, and that's going to be with I don't even know who. I know who's all on the list. It's Pollard, Barkley, Henry, T. Higgins, but they've already tagged him. So the free agency, there's a list of players on each team who need to be franchise tagged, but some of them have already been tagged. But the notable ones I want to get out for this one is Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Derrick Henry. All right, so those main three guys right there. All right, so Tony Pollard, I'm gonna start with Tony Pollard because his name has come up a lot recently in the past week or so for this free agency. We don't know, honestly, if the Cowboys are going to give him the franchise tag. I've seen and heard rumors that they're not going to give him the franchise tag, which is worth $12 million. As it is, they're like $9 million over the cap space, so they got to figure out something to clear up. This always happens with the Cowboys. They're always over the cap space when it comes to free agency, and then they got to do some stupid move that gets them out of it that's gonna like hurt us, but not hurt us because we get money back. But speaking of money, yeah, you already know what I'm gonna talk about. If you know why I'm chuckling and saying money and Cowboys, but Tony Pollard has had his name brought up in the headlines recently, and honestly, my thing is, people got to understand, Tony Pollard's coming off of a banged up knee or leg injury, coming off last year's playoff matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. As we know, right before halftime, Tony Pollard went down with a gruesome leg injury to the 49ers, and he wasn't able to recover and come back and play. And then he was ready to go for week 1 of last season, but that's what people got to remember, that he's also coming off of a injury that we know that he's not going to fully recover from, and that's why he wasn't able to strive and get that burst of speed like he was this year. Now, I could say that as my defense towards Tony Pollard, but also as the lead back, when you're asked to be the lead back, you also got to show contribution. And I'm not saying he didn't, but people got to remember is like when you're coming off an injury, it kind of takes a toll and effect on you. You don't have the same burst as you did when you first were healthy before that injury. But I already know people are going to start throwing out similar injuries that people were able to easily come back from, but it's different for each player, guys. It's the same at the end of the story. But I think he could be an exclusive back for us. We just need some veteran stride there to help him. Like with Zeke, when we had the Zeke and Pollard combo, it worked out well. Zeke got most of the red zone touches, and Pollard was able to get all the down the field plays that were bursts of speeds. We saw it last year. Zeke's last year as a Cowboy, he was able to get so many good red zone punches, and Tony Pollard was able to get a burst of speed and let it rip. He had one especially against the Bears, which is a really good game that he had. That was one that Zeke was out, but still, he learned off of him, and he was able to find success. Now with Zeke gone now, Tony Pollard was asked to take much of a bigger role this season than he has ever before in his career. And so that's what it comes down to, is the money part. Do we want to franchise tag him, or do we want to give him money that we think he's worth, but if he doesn't succeed, then we just wasted our money on this very young exclusive back that has potential. Here's the thing. I don't mind keeping him, but I also want us to find a running back that can put it in for us and give us good success down the road. Because we can have a good rushing game behind a very healthy offensive lineman. I mean, shoot. The linemen that we've had over the years have been very successful, especially that 2016 roster of a line like Travis Frederick, Tyrone, Zach, Terrence, I think, was out there at the time. But anyway, it was a good stand around, and Zeke was able to have a very successful campaign year. Was because of that offensive line, and that's what I think can be done. The same thing with Tony Pollard. We just got to find the right pieces, but we'll see how it goes because I mean, yeah, we can give him the money, but are we willing to give it to him long term or short term? I mean, that's what it all comes down to. And he's still young; he's got a whole career ahead of him. So I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to him. I would want him to find success where he thinks he can find it. But if we want him to have good success, I think we should bring in a veteran that can at least do that combo that he had with Zeke, so we can have a good combo and have success in the run game. Saquon's name has also come up in the news. The Giants don't want to franchise tag him. It looks like they want to come up with a deal. Hopefully a long-term deal with Saquon Barkley to keep him in New York. Guys, I think this is all baloney. I think it's time for Saquon to go. We know, of course, he's had those banged up knee injuries, and we know he hasn't been much the same, but he's been able to progress back easily and work his way back up into the big league. But I think Saquon's tenure in New York is over. I think it's time for him to leave. The Giants have just looked miscombobulated, and you could easily say that the year before, when they were over 500 and made the playoffs, it was just a fluke year, or it was just one good year for them. They were able to find success under new head coach Brian Daboll, and then now this year they have the whole Danny Dimes issue because he gets hurt and he's paid all this money, and now they're talking about getting rid of him as well. And it's like it's not good for him. So I think it's time for him to let loose and go somewhere else. And that's where Saquon Barkley's name comes up into this mix with the Cowboys. Is we could have the potential to just let Tony Pollard walk this year in free agency. Go get somebody like Saquon, who's had an injury history, yes, but someone who's more of a good back that we can develop into with our structural offense, especially with Dak Prescott. I mean, I wouldn't mind a Saquon Barkley, Dak Prescott look. I think it would look pretty good. I've always wanted to have Saquon on the Cowboys. Anyway, but it is what it is. But we'll see what happens. So I think it's time for Saquon's tenure in New York to be done with. It's not good for him. I think he needs to go. The Giants are a mess anyway. They have always been a mess ever since the Eli Manning and Odell story ended there. So I think it's time for him to go. I think it's time for Daniel Jones to go too. You gave him all that money, and he literally got hurt within the first few weeks, and now he wasn't able to come back and play. So it's time for him to go. Derrick Henry, as we know, they're not going to franchise tag him. I think they're going to let him walk. I mean, you don't give a speech like that at the end of the NFL season, especially in a home game, and then name down all the list of names that you're thankful for of everybody. I don't think you do that and then just come back. We all know his time's up in Tennessee. He's already said his goodbyes. He's said his thank yous. But now it's just a matter of time to see who he signs with. And then, of course, my Dallas Cowboys are a team that's been brought up as that name. It's always something with the Cowboys when it's always a big star free agency. And the thing is, because the Cowboys, the thing is in free agency, they never go out and get big names. Jerry always finds somebody in the draft, or he'll find some veteran starter that's has success already and then is almost burnt out to the point where he can't play or can play, but he's almost ending his years, and so he brings him on board. So Jerry Jones and the Cowboys aren't too fond of big names, but this is their chance to go get something and prove to the Cowboy Nation and to the rest of the NFL nation that they can go do something. They did it the year before with Stephon Gilmore, but it's only for 1 year. So now Stephon's also a free agency, so we'll see how that goes. But trust me, I'll get into the Cowboys more, okay? I'm still going to talk about, I know that I'm a month behind or a month over, but we're going to talk about the Cowboys still because, I mean, honestly, that was a pity performance. I'm still going to bring that up even though that was a month over. So we're going to talk about their offseason on another episode. But it's just a matter of time before one of these guys stays with their team or goes somewhere else. I think Derek and Saquon definitely go somewhere. Tony Pollard, we'll see how Jerry handles the situation, but we'll see how it goes. Cap space. Cap space. There's some cap space news, guys, and this was dropped last week. So the NFL has moved up the cap space number from last year to this year by 30 million. So the cap space this year is good for next season is going to be set to like $250 million. 255 right now it says. For this year now. Different 30 million from last year, guys. 30 million. Talk about inflation. Jeez, I don't even think that's what it is. But it is, I'm sure, but the cap space goes up every year anyway, so this is nothing new. But still, 30 million bucks from last year, jeez. And a big name that's come up in the salary cap is the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints were bottom team salary cap with like $52 million in debt. They were negative. They had to work something out in order to, because they have all these players signed and they're worth so much big contracts that they've reconstructed all these contracts. That's the funny part. They've reconstructed all these contracts over the years and they still find a way to get under 500 or to get under the salary cap big time. They just reconstructed the contract of Derek Carr, which was like $26 to $28 million, I believe. So that puts them now at $26 million. So they still got some work to do. They're still very well below the salary cap at $26 million, so they got to find something to do. The Cowboys are at $9 million in salary cap, so they're going to do something. As we know, the word is spreading around of that Dak Prescott is supposed to reportedly get a deal that's that's going to be break the market for the quarterbacks. Again, I'm going to just say that only, but I'm still going to talk about the Cowboys free agency, and I'm going to bring that up, of course, on another time with that. But I'm not going to get into detail about that. But still, they'll find a way to get back into the salary cap money. Every team does this every year. But still. But Washington, guys, Washington is at $77 million. Titans, Bears, Patriots all in the same area. So, I mean, shoot. These top four teams, especially with their picks in the draft, they can go out and make some pretty good moves, and I think they can. The Commanders, especially because they've had a fresh restart. They have a new head coach. They're getting new coaches, and now that Dan Quinn, former Cowboys coordinator, went there. Former defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, Dan Quinn, is now their head coach. They have new ownership, and they're about to change everything. So I think this is going to be good for them. They're about to hopefully have a rebuilding year this year and have a fresh start and get back to who they once were. Because I want the NFC East to have contention, honestly. But at the same time, I like it when it's just us in Philadelphia and we don't have to worry about the Giants or Commanders butting in. But it also makes it fun when all four teams, or at least three teams, are head-to-head with each other. But right now, it's both of the Giants and the Commanders have to find a way to crawl out and get something going good. But we'll see. I don't know. And then I haven't seen any trade rumors really about who's supposed to go where. But really, it all doesn't start until like the third week of spring. But the tag deadline for teams to get signed under a tag is like March 8th, which is it's like the next Tuesday after next Tuesday. So 2 weeks, a week and a half or so. So yeah. But so that's it. That's all I have for today. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap up this episode, guys. Again, I want to apologize for having such a hiatus. Again, I keep doing this, and me and Jake keep talking about it. We got to stay consistent. I've got to stay consistent because I'm the one bringing all these episodes. How are y'all supposed to know half this information if I don't even bring it to y'all? So it's whatever. I'm gonna fix it. We're going to keep it rolling, though, because free agency and the playoffs for the NBA, they tend to heat up around this time, especially in the new year. And then we still got the draft coming up for the NFL. The draft combine is this week, and it starts tomorrow, so I'll probably go over that just a little bit. And the draft is another 2 months from now. Actually, yeah, about 2 months. So we're almost there. And yeah, it's going to get interesting. So, guys, just going to wrap it up here. Again, this is Cooper Brooks. I'm your host. Or this is Cooper Sports Podcast. So I'm your host, Cooper Brooks, bringing it to you on Spotify and YouTube. Please don't forget to share this podcast to others. I want this podcast to grow as much as I can. I want it to get out and have people all around basically the country maybe, or even just within Texas. I just want people to know about it, and I want it to grow and make it good. Again, I'm your host, Cooper Brooks, signing off.